The night sky over the Pacific Ocean was calm, almost too calm, when something unusual appeared among the stars. At first, it looked like a shooting star, a streak of light that vanished as quickly as it came, but then it slowed, hovering above the water, as if it had a purpose. On radar screens around the world, alarms started flashing. Scientists and military officers stared at the monitors, confused and fearful. The object was neither plane nor satellite, and its signals were unlike anything ever seen before. It pulsed like a heartbeat, irregular yet steady, sending strange patterns across every detection system. 4 days, the world debated whether it was a weapon, a warning, or something else entirely. Then, without warning, it began descending toward the ocean surface. Boats, helicopters, and drones rushed toward it, but the water remained calm, almost respectful, as if it knew something sacred was about to happen. As the object touched the ocean, it emitted a low hum that vibrated through the waves, and those nearby could feel a strange warmth despite the night's chill. The first humans to see it up close could barely believe their eyes. The object was a capsule, sleek and metallic, shaped like nothing in human design. And inside it lay a creature, small but alive, curled up and glowing faintly. Its skin shimmered like liquid metal, and its eyes, wide and intelligent, reflected both fear and wisdom far beyond its size. It was a dragon, but unlike any storybook dragons of old. This was real, a living, breathing being, yet tiny, fragile, and clearly dying. Its wings were folded weakly against its back, and as it opened its eyes, a wave of emotions, loneliness, sorrow, desperation, washed over the observers as if the creature had reached out into their minds. Scientists quickly realized it was communicating, not with words, but with images and feelings. Everyone who looked into its glowing eyes saw flashes of ruined planets, burning cities, empty skies, and the cries of a dying race. This baby dragon was the last of its kind, and somehow, it had come to Earth for a reason. Panic spread among the military personnel. Some wanted to destroy it immediately, fearing it was a threat. Others argued it needed help. But every time anyone raised a weapon, the dragon shivered and projected a vision of flames consuming an entire world, showing that violence would only repeat itself. Slowly, the team realized the dragon's presence was not random. It had chosen Earth, or at least it hoped humans could rise above fear and greed to help it. The capsule opened fully, and the dragon struggled to lift its head, letting out a soft cry that sounded almost like music. The sound pierced the minds of those nearby, stirring something deep and ancient in the human psyche, a sense of wonder mixed with urgent responsibility. Scientists rushed to examine the creature, noting its weak heartbeat and strange energy readings. Its body was a mix of flesh, scales, and an unknown metallic element, and its small chest seemed to pulse not just with life, but with some hidden power. Every attempt to touch it was met with images and emotions, teaching humans things they could not yet understand. They saw war and peace, fear and courage, death and hope, all intertwined in a way that suggested the dragon species had been more than just warriors, they were protectors of life itself. As news of the arrival spread, people across the globe watched the events unfold through live feeds. Conspiracy theories and fear spread quickly, but so did awe and fascination. Children stared at screens in disbelief, and adults whispered prayers and hopes that this small creature could somehow save them from whatever future the visions hinted at. Meanwhile, the dragon made one thing very clear: it carried something important, something that could change the course of humanity if they understood how to receive it. Occasionally, it would extend a tiny claw toward its rescuers, and in those moments, visions of light and knowledge flashed in their minds. Scientists began calling it the memory crystal, though they didn't fully understand its function yet. Every second the dragon remained on Earth, it grew weaker, its glow dimming slightly, but the urgency in its eyes remained. It was as if the creature knew time was running out, and humanity's chance to rise to the challenge would vanish if they failed to understand its message. Some brave individuals began to feel a strange connection, as though the dragon's thoughts were now entwined with theirs. They saw the enemy that had destroyed its people, an unstoppable force consuming every planet, leaving nothing alive in its wake. And yet, in the midst of this darkness, the dragon offered hope. The images it sent weren't just of destruction, they were of courage, of unity, of the power that life itself could wield when it refused to be afraid. Slowly, the world realized that this tiny, dying dragon was not here to fight, not here to conquer, but here to teach humans something no human had ever learned before, that even the smallest being could carry the weight of hope for an entire galaxy. As night deepened, the dragon's soft hum continued, a lullaby and a warning all at once. The humans around it knew that everything had changed. They were no longer just people on a planet. They were witnesses, guardians, and perhaps the next protectors in a chain of life stretching far beyond the stars. And somewhere in the dark, beyond the horizon, the first faint signals of the approaching enemy flickered in the void of space, reminding them that the dragon's message was urgent, and that the quiet night was only the calm before a storm that could either destroy or unite humanity forever. The morning after the dragon's arrival, the world was in chaos, yet quietly mesmerized. News channels broadcasted images of the glowing creature cradled by scientists in the Pacific Research Station, while military satellites recorded unusual energy signatures rising from the capsule. The dragon stirred weakly, its large eyes opening slowly, and in that gaze, everyone who looked saw more than just life. They saw history, pain, and a warning. The creature's visions became clearer now, showing the humans the story of its race, a proud and noble species that had once traveled the stars freely, protecting worlds from forces that sought to destroy life. But those protectors had been hunted relentlessly, one system after another consumed by an enemy whose cruelty had no limits. Whole planets had fallen, their skies darkened by fire, their oceans boiled, their people turned to dust. The dragon's own family, its home, its entire world, had been wiped out, leaving only this tiny survivor to carry a final message to whoever might understand. As the scientists studied it, they noticed the creature had a small crystalline object embedded in its chest. Every time it pulsed, a faint light flickered from the crystal, sending visions directly into the minds of those nearby. These visions were not simple images, they were feelings, memories, and knowledge all at once, giving the humans glimpses of technology, strategies, and even the ethics of a civilization far older and wiser than their own. Many could barely comprehend what they were seeing, yet a sense of urgency pressed on them. The dragon's race had fallen, and the enemy that destroyed them was moving closer, spreading across space faster than anything humanity had ever imagined. Rumors of strange signals from the deep cosmos reached Earth's observatories, and scientists quickly realized the patterns matched the dragon's warnings. This enemy was intelligent, cruel, and unstoppable if met unprepared. Tension grew in governments and military offices around the world, some calling for immediate evacuation plans, others demanding weapons be prepared to strike before the threat arrived. Yet the dragon, weak as it was, refused to allow fear to guide the humans. It projected visions of courage, cooperation, and hope, showing humans how their small efforts could change the outcome of events in ways they had never imagined. Slowly, a select group of scientists and strategists began to understand. The crystal inside the dragon was more than an object, it was a gift, a key to something humanity could wield if they were brave enough to accept it. Yet every attempt to take it by force failed. The dragon reacted by sending visions of suffering and destruction, as if to say that power taken without understanding would only bring ruin. Only those who approached with respect, patience, and empathy could receive even fragments of its knowledge. Even as this struggle unfolded, the dragon's body grew weaker. Its glowing scales dimmed, and its soft hum became a faint whisper. It was clear to those who watched closely that time was running out. But in those fleeting hours, the creature revealed glimpses of hope, images of humans working together, nations setting aside old rivalries, engineers and soldiers learning and planning together in ways they had never done before. For the first time, the concept of unity became tangible, almost as if the dragon's presence was forcing humanity to rise above petty conflicts for survival. Across the globe, ordinary people began to sense something extraordinary was happening. Children staring at news screens felt awe and fear in equal measure, sensing the gravity of the situation even if they could not fully explain it. Adults whispered quietly to one another, feeling both the weight of responsibility and the thrill of possibility. Meanwhile, a small team of scientists discovered that the crystal pulsed stronger when humans acted with courage and selflessness, and they began experimenting carefully, trying to unlock its secrets. Tiny fragments of energy could be drawn without harming the dragon, and each fragment seemed to enhance human abilities in subtle ways: sharper focus, faster thinking, increased endurance, and a sense of unity with others. It was as if the dragon was teaching humanity that strength was not about weapons or machines, but about trust, cooperation, and the willingness to protect life. While the military leaders remained skeptical, the dragon's visions began to shift their minds as well, showing them images of entire fleets destroyed by the enemy, followed by scenes of courage and resilience that turned the tide when hope seemed lost. Every human who looked into the dragon's eyes realized that fear alone would lead to defeat, but courage united with knowledge and compassion could achieve miracles. Despite the calm water outside the station, the world outside trembled with anticipation. Signals from space grew stronger, and astronomers confirmed movement of massive objects beyond the solar system. The enemy was coming, and no nation could face it alone. The dragon, sensing this, directed its final teachings not with words, but with visions and feelings, embedding in humans the lessons of strategy, morality, and endurance. And as the day wore on, a quiet bond formed between the fragile creature and the humans around it, one that transcended language, culture, and even species. They began to understand that this small, dying dragon was not just a survivor, it was a guide, a mentor, and the last hope of an entire galaxy. And somewhere, far beyond Earth's skies, faint flickers of distant stars hinted at the approaching threat, reminding everyone that the calm was temporary, that the quiet before the storm was ending, and that humanity's courage would soon be tested in ways they had never imagined, with the dragon's final gift as their only chance to survive. The signals from deep space grew stronger each hour, and astronomers across the globe began reporting strange, moving objects far beyond the reaches of the solar system. At first, they were just faint blips on radar, almost invisible, but then patterns emerged, shapes too precise to be natural, movements too calculated to be random. The dragon, still weak and barely able to lift its tiny wings, projected visions into the minds of the humans around it, showing what was coming. The enemy that had destroyed its race was heading toward Earth, faster than light, unstoppable by any human technology alone. Panic spread quickly among world leaders. Some demanded immediate evacuation, fearful that Earth would meet the same fate as the dragon's homeworld. Others insisted on preparing weapons, launching satellites, and building fleets capable of fighting a war in space. Yet the dragon's presence calmed those who approached it with patience and respect, sending images of courage, hope, and unity instead of fear. It showed the humans that the enemy was powerful, but not invincible. Small acts of intelligence and bravery, combined with unity, could turn the tide even against forces far stronger than anything they had known. The scientists began to notice something extraordinary. Whenever the dragon touched one of them with its tiny claw or nudged a fragment of its crystal toward them, the human's mind seemed to expand, thoughts becoming faster, strategies clearer, and courage stronger. It was as if the dragon was teaching them how to fight, not with weapons alone, but with knowledge, creativity, and heart. Meanwhile, ordinary people around the world began to feel the shift, too. Strange feelings of determination and calm spread in the midst of fear, as if humanity itself was awakening. Rival nations began to communicate secretly, sharing resources and knowledge, and even the most stubborn military leaders found themselves working together. The dragon's gift was subtle but powerful. It taught humans that unity and courage could amplify their strength far beyond any machine. Despite this progress, the enemy's fleet was not just approaching, it was massive, stretching across the darkness like a shadow of death, moving faster than human imagination could comprehend. Every telescope and radar captured glimpses of it, enormous ships, shapes unfamiliar and terrifying, moving with precision and intelligence. People across Earth stared at the night sky with fear, wondering how they could possibly survive. The dragon, sensing their fear, projected visions of its own kind fighting similar battles in distant galaxies. They were noble and brave, but many had fallen. Only those who learned to act together, who combined courage, strategy, and compassion, had survived even a moment longer. The humans who received the crystal fragments began sharing what they learned, forming plans and training others, spreading the dragon's lessons like a quiet revolution. They studied the enemy's movements, tested new defensive strategies, and discovered that even the smallest efforts, if coordinated, could delay and weaken the attackers. The world was transforming rapidly, not through weapons or fear, but through courage, intelligence, and a deep understanding of what the dragon had endured and what it wanted humans to become. As the fleet approached, massive tremors of energy shook satellites and space stations, a warning that the enemy's ships were not merely physical but contained forces humans could barely comprehend. In the research station, the dragon's breathing grew faint. Every pulse of its crystal seemed weaker, yet its visions became clearer, more urgent. It showed images of humans standing together, prepared, unafraid, and capable of protecting life not just on Earth, but across the galaxy. Its final lessons were profound. Fear was the enemy's weapon, but courage could turn that weapon against them. Isolation made humans weak, but unity made them strong, and even the smallest beings, if brave and clever, could carry the fate of millions. Outside, the first contact with the enemy was imminent. Strange pulses of light crossed the darkness, warning of arrival, and global communication networks buzzed with tension. Leaders debated evacuation or war, while ordinary citizens watched the sky, hearts pounding with a mix of fear and awe. In the midst of this, the dragon reached out one final time to those closest to it, projecting a vision of what Earth could become, a protector, a force capable of defending life across stars, a new hope for civilizations yet to come. The humans realized the magnitude of the moment. They were no longer just inhabitants of a planet, but participants in a story that spanned galaxies. The enemy's fleet loomed ever closer, but humanity had changed. It was no longer divided, weak, or unprepared. The lessons of the dragon, embedded in crystal fragments, minds, and hearts, had transformed them. Courage, unity, intelligence, and empathy became weapons as powerful as any missile, as strong as any shield. And while the dragon's life force dwindled with every heartbeat, its influence grew, guiding humanity toward a future that could withstand even the darkest threat. The first flashes of the enemy's massive ships appeared on Earth sensors, sending waves of fear through populations, but the humans, now infused with the dragon's teachings, did not panic. Instead, they focused, planned, and prepared, their minds and hearts aligned in a way that no weapon alone could achieve. And as the shadow of the approaching enemy spread across the sky, the fragile, glowing creature rested quietly, knowing that its purpose was almost complete, and that humanity, if it followed the lessons of hope, courage, and unity, could face the coming storm and emerge victorious where so many others had fallen. The world held its breath as the first signs of the enemy fleet entered the solar system, massive ships cutting through space with terrifying speed, their dark hulls absorbing light as if swallowing the stars themselves. On Earth, every radar, telescope, and satellite picked up their approach, and panic spread among people who had only just begun to hope. But the humans who had touched the dragon's crystal felt something different. They felt courage rising from their hearts, clarity sharpening their minds, and a strange bond forming between nations and individuals that had never existed before. Scientists worked feverishly to understand the fragments of the dragon's crystal, discovering that even small amounts could enhance human potential in subtle but critical ways. Soldiers trained longer, thought faster, and coordinated perfectly, while engineers designed weapons and defenses that seemed impossible, inspired by visions the dragon had shared. Ordinary citizens also felt the dragon's influence, standing strong when evacuation orders were given, helping one another, sharing food, and forming communities that worked together instead of collapsing in fear. And in the research station where the dragon rested, its breathing was shallow, wings barely moving, yet its glow pulsed faintly with each heartbeat, as if drawing strength from the humans around it. The first encounter with the enemy came quietly at first. Probes, faster than anything humans had ever created, reached Earth's orbit, scanning, mapping, and testing defenses. They were immediately destroyed by newly designed satellites and weapons, but each encounter revealed that the enemy was smarter than expected, adapting to human tactics almost instantly. The dragon projected visions to those closest to it, showing strategies that humans could not have invented on their own, maneuvers of fleets, defensive patterns, and even ways to harness energy from the planet itself to strengthen shields. Every fragment of crystal seemed to awaken deeper understanding, and even the most skeptical generals began to see a path forward. Days passed with skirmishes in orbit, smaller than the humans feared but enough to demonstrate the enemy's power. Ships were destroyed, satellites fell, and panic threatened to return, but the lessons of the dragon held firm. Cooperation became humanity's greatest weapon. Teams across continents shared intelligence, calculated trajectories, and predicted enemy behavior with almost prescient accuracy. Children and civilians contributed ideas, inventions, and insights that surprised even the experts, and slowly, humanity's defenses began to take shape. Meanwhile, the dragon's health deteriorated rapidly. Its glow faded, and its breathing grew shallow. Scientists and military leaders gathered around it, torn between awe, fear, and sorrow. Every time the dragon moved, it projected visions of hope, courage, and unity, teaching humans that strength came not from fear or destruction, but from trust, cooperation, and moral courage. In one of its last acts, it extended a small claw toward a young engineer, sending a surge of energy through the crystal fragment in her hands. Her mind was flooded with images of fleets moving in perfect harmony, shields bending light, and weapons coordinating with precision. She understood immediately, this was not magic, not divine power, but a teaching. The dragon was showing humans how to fight smarter, together, and with courage that no enemy could crush. Across the globe, fleets and armies coordinated, implementing what the dragon had shown them. Nations that had once argued over territory, politics, and resources now worked as one, focusing entirely on survival and the lessons of courage and unity imparted by a small, dying creature from the stars. And then the enemy struck in force, arriving with massive ships that dwarfed any human creation, unleashing beams of energy that tore through space and atmosphere. Earth's skies lit up with explosions and bright flashes, and panic surged among civilians, but the humans trained by the dragon's guidance did not falter. Their ships moved in perfect formation, shielding cities and vital areas, launching counterattacks with precision and coordination that seemed impossible even hours earlier. The dragon, sensing its final moments, pulsed its remaining energy, projecting the ultimate vision, the culmination of courage, unity, and intelligence. Human fleets glowed faintly with the energy of the crystal fragments, shields reinforced, weapons amplified, and morale soaring as never before. And in the midst of the battle, the dragon made the ultimate sacrifice. Its small body erupted in a wave of energy that spread through every human-controlled system, enhancing the fleet's speed, resilience, and firepower. Even the smallest vessels moved as if alive, responding to strategies faster than any human mind could control. The humans now realized the depth of the dragon's gift. It was not just a physical boost, it was a lesson, a spark of hope, a force that turned fear into courage and division into unity. The battle raged across skies and orbit, explosions lighting the heavens, beams of energy crossing vast distances, but humanity held firm. Each fragment of the dragon's crystal pulsed in harmony with its remaining energy, guiding humans to fight together, anticipate moves, and protect life with a determination that even the enemy could not break. And as the first wave of the enemy began to falter under humanity's unexpected resilience, it became clear, the dragon's final gift had transformed them, not into invincible beings, but into something far more powerful, the willingness to fight for life, together, without fear, without surrender, with courage and unity shining brighter than any weapon. The sky above Earth was alive with fire and light as the enemy fleet closed in, massive warships stretching across the horizon, their weapons charging with a deadly hum that shook the atmosphere itself. Humans watched from the surface, hearts pounding, while fleets in orbit prepared for the decisive clash. The dragon, now barely more than a faint glow, hovered weakly in the research station, its wings folded, its breathing shallow, yet every pulse of its crystal sent waves of courage through the minds of humans everywhere. The leaders of the human fleets had never faced anything like this. Ships larger than continents, moving faster than any human design, their energy beams capable of obliterating entire cities in moments. Panic threatened to return, but the lessons of the dragon had taken hold. Unity, courage, and clear strategy would be the difference between life and annihilation. The first wave of attack came suddenly, streaks of energy lancing through space, striking the outermost defense satellites and testing humanity's shields. Explosions lit the darkness, sending fragments spinning into the void, but the humans responded immediately. Coordinated strikes, guided by the visions and knowledge the dragon had shared, neutralized the initial assault. Every move felt almost impossible, yet somehow, humans anticipated the enemy, adapting in real time as if the dragon's thoughts were now part of them. In cities below, people watched with terror and awe as glowing shields appeared in orbit, deflecting beams that would have destroyed their homes. Soldiers and pilots carried out maneuvers with precision that exceeded even their training, their minds sharper, their courage unshakable, and their unity unbreakable. Meanwhile, the dragon's glow dimmed further, its tiny body trembling as if exhausted from giving everything it had. Scientists monitored it closely, understanding that the creature was using the last of its life energy to guide humanity through this critical moment. And then, the enemy unleashed its true power, a massive wave of destruction, targeting the largest human fleets at once. Ships exploded, turning the darkness into a field of fire and debris. Alarm sirens echoed across Earth, panic swept through the population, and despair threatened to take hold. But the humans, strengthened by the dragon's gift, held fast. The fragments of its crystal pulsed in synchronization, amplifying courage, clarity, and determination. Even the smallest vessels moved as if they were extensions of a single mind, shielding one another, striking with deadly precision, and protecting the surface of Earth from the enemy's relentless assault. Pilots who had been terrified minutes before now acted with uncanny skill, predicting enemy attacks and coordinating counterstrikes that began to turn the tide. Engineers in orbit rerouted energy flows, reinforced shields, and deployed new weapons inspired by the dragon's visions, each act of bravery and intelligence working together to create a force that the enemy had not expected. In the research station, the dragon's eyes closed slowly, and with its final heartbeat, it released a massive pulse of energy that spread across Earth and into orbit, touching every human, every vessel, every piece of technology that had been infused with its lessons. Ships that were barely operational glowed with newfound power, shields hardened like living armor, and weapons amplified beyond their designed limits. The humans had become more than a force, they had become a single, unified entity, fighting with courage and hope stronger than any machine. The enemy fleet faltered, confused by the unexpected resilience and adaptability of humans, and their attacks began to fail. Massive explosions rocked the enemy ships as coordinated strikes tore through their formations. One by one, the massive vessels fell, their destruction lighting the skies with brilliance and smoke. On the surface, people cheered and wept, witnessing a miracle that no one had imagined possible just days ago. The dragon's final gift had transformed them, not through force alone, but through courage, unity, and intelligence. Every human who had touched a fragment of its crystal felt its presence within them, guiding them, strengthening them, reminding them that the fight was not just for survival but for life itself. As the last enemy ship disintegrated, silence returned to the cosmos, broken only by the distant hum of human vessels and the crackling of fires across Earth. Humanity had survived, not because of weapons, not because of luck, but because they had learned the lessons of a dying creature from the stars. The dragon's body, now a faint shimmer of light, hovered in the research station one last time before dissolving into countless sparks that drifted into the atmosphere, leaving behind a single crystal heart. The heart glowed softly, a reminder of sacrifice, courage, and hope, and those who held fragments knew that its legacy would guide humanity for generations. The battle was won, but humanity had changed forever. They were no longer just inhabitants of a single planet, they were guardians of life, bound together by the lessons of the dragon and the realization that unity and courage could overcome even the darkest force in the universe. And as the stars above twinkled silently, humans looked to the sky with a new understanding. The galaxy was vast, dangers still awaited, but now they had the knowledge, courage, and hope to face anything, carrying the final gift of a small, dying dragon that had believed in them when no one else could. The sky over Earth was finally calm, though the scars of battle were visible everywhere. Cities damaged, forests scorched, oceans rippling from falling debris, and satellites burning in the atmosphere like shooting stars. Humanity had survived the enemy's onslaught, yet the cost was enormous. Millions were lost, fleets destroyed, and the planet itself bore the weight of the battle. But amidst the ruins, hope shone brighter than ever, a fragile yet powerful light that stretched across continents. In the research station, where the baby dragon had first arrived, silence filled the air. The once glowing creature now existed only as a faint spark, its body dissolved into energy that seemed to mingle with the atmosphere itself, leaving behind a single crystal heart that pulsed gently, a heartbeat in miniature, a symbol of life, courage, and sacrifice. Scientists, soldiers, and civilians gathered around it, tears in their eyes, understanding without words that the dragon had given everything it had, not just to save humanity, but to teach them a lesson far greater than survival. Those who had held fragments of its crystal felt a warmth spreading through their hearts, memories of the visions it had sent, of unity, of courage, of fighting not for conquest, but for life itself. Across the world, people looked up at the sky, realizing that they were forever changed. Children who had watched the battle from safe distances whispered stories of the small glowing dragon that had come from the stars, while adults quietly promised to honor its gift by protecting life and standing together against future threats. Governments, once divided by politics and fear, began to communicate openly, sharing knowledge, resources, and strategies to rebuild what had been lost and to prepare for the wider galaxy they now understood was full of dangers and full of possibilities. Pilots, engineers, and soldiers who had fought alongside the dragon's lessons spoke of the clarity, courage, and unity that had carried them through impossible odds. They felt the creature's presence in their minds still, a reminder that hope could shine brightest in the darkest hours. Even the environment seemed to respond. Rivers slowly flowed back to their banks, forests regrew where fire had touched, and animals returned cautiously, as if acknowledging that balance had been restored. But the greatest change was in humanity itself. People no longer saw themselves as separate nations, separate races, or separate lives. They had touched something beyond Earth, beyond themselves, and the dragon's final gift had shown them that the strength of life comes not from power or fear, but from courage, empathy, and unity. For a moment, the world paused collectively, looking at the single glowing crystal heart that remained in the research station. It pulsed with a gentle rhythm, almost like a second heartbeat for humanity, reminding them that the fight had not just been against the enemy in the stars, but against their own doubts, fears, and divisions. Those who had witnessed the battle whispered to one another, promising to carry forward the lessons of the dragon, to protect life, and to prepare for a future where Earth could stand as a guardian of the galaxy. And in quiet corners of the world, children played among the ruins, imagining dragons flying across the sky, not as creatures of fear, but as symbols of hope, courage, and the promise that life, no matter how small or fragile, could change the course of entire worlds. Scientists began to study the crystal heart, not for power, but for understanding. They realized it held knowledge, history, and the essence of a race long gone. It was a reminder that even when life seems small, weak, or vulnerable, it can leave a legacy that echoes through time and space. Leaders, inspired by the dragon's sacrifice, formed councils and alliances that stretched across continents, ensuring that the unity forged in the fire of battle would not be lost. Humanity had learned that survival alone was not enough. They must protect, nurture, and advance life wherever it could flourish. And as the sun rose over a battered yet enduring planet, the crystal heart pulsed one last time, sending a faint wave of energy across Earth that touched every living being, filling them with courage, hope, and the memory of a small dragon that had believed in them when the galaxy itself seemed lost. The baby dragon's final gift was not a weapon, not a shield, not even technology. It was the awakening of humanity itself, the understanding that life must fight for itself, for others, and for the future. And though the creature was gone, its presence lingered in hearts, minds, and the skies above. The stars twinkled as if watching, waiting, and the humans who looked upon them felt a new purpose: to honor the sacrifice, to protect the weak, to stand united against any darkness, and to carry forward the legacy of courage, hope, and unity that one small, dying dragon had entrusted to them. Humanity was no longer just a species, it was a guardian, a force capable of defending life, inspired by the memory and final gift of the creature that had flown across the cosmos to remind them that even the smallest heart can change the fate of worlds, and that hope, once awakened, can never truly fade.